Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Purport. The most confidential part of knowledge is that one should become a pure devotee of Krishna and always think of him and act for him. One should not become an official meditator. Life should be so molded that one will always have the chance to think of Krishna. One should always act in such a way that all his daily activities are in connection with Krishna. He should arrange his life in such a way that throughout the 24 hours he cannot but think of Krishna. And the Lord's promise is that anyone who is in such pure Krishna consciousness will certainly return to the abode of Krishna, where he will be engaged in the association of Krishna face to face. This most confidential part of knowledge is spoken to Arjuna because he is the dear friend of Krishna. Everyone who follows the path of Arjuna can become a dear friend to Krishna and obtain the same perfection as Arjuna. These words stress that one should concentrate his mind upon Krishna, the very form with two hands carrying a flute, the bluish boy with a beautiful face and peacock feathers in his hair. There are descriptions of Krishna found in the Brahma Samhita and other literatures. One should fix his mind on the original form of Godhead, Krishna. One should not even divert his attention to other forms of the Lord. The Lord has multi-forms as Vishnu, Narayana, Rama, Varaha, etc. But a devotee should concentrate his mind on the form that was present before Arjuna. Concentration of the mind on the form of Krishna constitutes the most confidential part of knowledge, and this is disclosed to Arjuna because Arjuna is the most dear friend of Krishna's. Hare Krishna. Please sit and listen now, and request everyone, if you want to take photos, you can take them later. I'll pose and put on my best smile if you like. But please now listen, because that's the first activity in devotional life. Everyone's also requested to turn off their cell phone or put it in silent mode or whatever you do so it doesn't disturb the discourse which is about to take place, because Krishna is inviting us to be very dear to him. Krishna speaks Bhagavad-gita to Arjuna. He's actually speaking to all of us because Arjuna is already a very dear friend to Krishna. That's why Krishna spoke Bhagavad-gita to Arjuna. Bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasya hietad uttamam. Krishna says that I'm speaking this Bhagavad-gita to you, Arjuna, because you're my very dear friend. So actually this Bhagavad-gita is meant even more for us than it is for Arjuna. Because we're not with Krishna. Krishna wants us to enter into a very dear relationship with him. And that's why we've all come here, isn't it? You've come here. Why? Well, if we ask why you've come here, we could probably give many reasons, but if we get down to the heart of it, it's because we all want to be Krishna conscious. We want to be dear to Krishna. We want to revive our dormant relationship with Krishna, which is a loving relationship. We want to become close to Krishna. We have a desire for that. Of course, we have many other desires also, which is why we're not with Krishna. We're in this material world because we have many desires. Hoya mayar das kari nana obhilash. Narottam Das says that when we become the servant of Krishna, of Maya, we are the servant of Krishna. When we become the servant of Maya, then we have many, many, many desires. When we're the servant of Krishna, we only want to please Krishna. When we're the servant of Maya, Maya offers us so many different things. When Krishna has spoken throughout the whole Bhagavad-gita, just to convince us that there's really nothing worthwhile in this world whatsoever. Nothing of any real value. Nothing of any real value. So, at this point, after hearing all the Bhagavad-gita, we should be ready to hear this. Krishna already said it halfway through the Bhagavad-gita, the same thing. Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mang namaskaro. Always think of me, become my devotee, bow down to me, worship me. And he's saying it again. This is the real essence of what Krishna says to us. So we've all come here, we want to become close to Krishna. Closer. Krishna means all attractive. Krishna, this name means all attractive. It comes from the Krish dhatu, the root in Sanskrit. So there's another word, there are many words which come from that attraction. Akarshak, that is one word which means a magnet. So if we come, just like a magnet, if iron filings come close, as they get closer they become irresistibly attracted. And as we become close to Krishna, we become irresistibly attracted. We're just holding back. We know that we should come closer and closer to Krishna, which is why we come to meetings like this. But at the same time, we're holding back a little. So we should hear about Krishna and Krishna consciousness just to understand and become convinced and become irresistibly attracted to Krishna, so that we don't want anything else but Krishna in our life. That in itself is the perfection of life. What is the topmost perfection of life? When we know no one but Krishna. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prays, this is the topmost prayer. There's so many prayers. We can pray to Krishna in many ways. In all religious traditions, there's some kind of prayer. But this is the best way that anyone could pray. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the mood of Srimati Radharani, prays, Aslishava padartang pinashtu mama darshanan marmahatam karotu va yata tata va vidadhatu lampato mat prananatas tu saevanapara. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prays that Krishna may embrace me. That means very personal relationship with Krishna. Most people, they can't imagine being embraced by God. They generally think of some very remote figure who answers our prayers. Give me dhanam dehi. That's the prayer to Durga. Dhanam dehi. Give me wealth. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is envisaging that Krishna may embrace me. Or maybe he won't. He may ignore me. He may even treat me very roughly. But in all circumstances, I'm going to keep Krishna as the Lord of my life. He may even act in a manner that makes my heart broken. Marmahata. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that will always be my Lord. So that very close relationship. This is complete surrender to Krishna, where we don't think what I will get from Krishna, what Krishna will do for me, what's in the bargain, what's the deal? What do I get from worshipping Krishna? We may shop around and see, well, this God, this religion, that religion. A lot of people think that, well, Sai Baba's the best. He gives you all you want. But Krishna consciousness, real Krishna consciousness is not about what we get from Krishna, but just simply loving Krishna. Why? Even in the highest stages, one doesn't even think why. So we're a long way from that, probably. But we should hear about Krishna. This will awaken our natural feelings. Why? Because that's who we are. That's what we are. Jiveswarupai Krishna Nityadas. We are all eternally servants of Krishna. We need to hear that again and again. We are all eternally servants of Krishna. We are all eternally servants of Krishna. We can go on saying that. And we do. By chanting Hare Krishna, what are we praying? We're praying, O Krishna, O energy of Krishna, please engage me in your service. This Hare Krishna mantra can be explained in various ways. What's the import of it? Srila Prabhupada always stressed the prime meaning, the underlying meaning that underlies all other meanings is simply engage me in your service. That doesn't appeal to many people, even many people who are religious. They can't really work it out. They think that, well, actually we should pray to God for good health and peace of mind and enough money. We can even pray for overcoming our enemies. That's also there. As Srila Prabhupada explained, he heard from his German godbrother that in Germany the Germans were praying to God, help us win in this war. And on the other side, they were also praying. The English were praying, let us beat the Germans, and the Germans were praying, let us beat the English. So, what's God supposed to do? But the real prayer should be that I only want to serve you. So, we come here to hear about this, how we can come close to Krishna. And why should we do that? Then we should hear about Krishna, that how attractive is Krishna? Why is Krishna attractive? What is it about Krishna that makes him attractive? Well, everything about Krishna makes him attractive. But Ratina Janmilo Kenetai, our attraction for Krishna didn't awaken because we're still cultivating attraction for everything in this world. But we should know that everything in this world is temporary, and whatever we try to enjoy in this world will not give us happiness. Rather, it will give us distress. These vital lessons we learn from Bhagavad-gita. We tend to be dull-headed, even though we know Janiya Shunya Bisha Kainam. This Narottam Das says in that same song. That even though we know what is right, what we should do, what we shouldn't do, we have a tendency to go on drinking the poison of material life. So go on hearing, and become convinced that there's nothing in this world. There's only Krishna. There's nothing else worth pursuing. And not only hearing, there are so many activities in Krishna consciousness, the process of sadhana bhakti. So many activities, but it may take some time, but this will purify us. The activities of sadhana bhakti, they are to restrict our involvement with material sense gratification and to increase our attraction to Krishna. Both sides are there. Vidhi nisheda. Vidhi means that which should be done. There are positive injunctions. Do this. Chant Hare Krishna. One should chant Hare Krishna. And nisheda, don't do that. Things to do and things not to do. So the things to do, we should chant the holy names of Krishna, associate with devotees, worship the deities, take Krishna prasada. All these activities are meant to enhance our Krishna consciousness. And there are things which should not be done, because if they're done, then even if we are doing the things that we should do, if we also do the things that we shouldn't do, then it's like pouring petrol into a fire from one side and water from the other. We'll get a lot of smoke. If we only pour water, then the fire will be extinguished altogether. If we only pour petrol, then the fire will blaze up. But if we pour both, then we get some sputtering and some smoke. So performing the activities favorable for advancement in Krishna consciousness, that's like pouring petrol. Performing activities that hamper our advancement, that is like pouring water. So there are many such activities. I mentioned the positive activities. We should among them are associating with devotees, or associating with non-devotees, that is detrimental. Taking food which is not offered to Krishna, or even if it is offered to Krishna, if it's not really offerable, then Krishna will not accept that. So these are activities which are detrimental to advancement in devotional service. So our aim should become to become closer and closer to Krishna, to become dear to Krishna. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was fully absorbed in love of Krishna, and he wanted to give that love of Krishna to others. That's why Srila Prabhupada also came to the Western world, why anyone preaches Krishna consciousness, just to bring us, to awaken our original consciousness, Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness means to be conscious of Krishna, obviously, and to know Krishna is to love him. This consciousness, the whole spiritual process is one of raising our consciousness, purifying the consciousness. Generally, when we talk about spirituality, people think of meditation. And in Krishna consciousness there is meditation also, meditation on the form, the pastimes of Krishna. But generally people think of meditation as some process by which we just... Actually, many people, the idea of meditation in the Western countries seems to be more some kind of meditation as a relaxation technique that was introduced by the Yogi Mahesh of transcendental meditation he introduced it as a relaxation process. So people, they mostly think of it as a relaxation process, release from stress, and those who take it as a more spiritual process, they think of just that one's consciousness becomes merged with the all-pervading consciousness. But bhakti is a process of prayer. It's personal, it's interactive, it's dynamic. It's a very different process to that of this the whole idea of meditation. There's no, again, meditation in Krishna consciousness is something different, but meditation as it's generally understood, there's no love there. There's no love. There's no conception of Krishna. It's just withdrawing oneself. But Krishna here asks us, what's going on? There's a lot of movement around. I see. Okay. Well, it is good just to sit and listen also. So this idea of spiritualism as just meditation, and it's actually very self-centered. But Krishna consciousness means to submit our self, our whole sense of selfhood, our ego, to Krishna, to submit with faith in Krishna that Krishna will protect me. So it's a personal process from the very beginning. It's personal. It's not impersonal. This idea of meditation, it's impersonal. So it's a very different approach altogether. Bhakti, one of devotion. In this processes of meditation that are popular, there's no love, there's no personalism. So Krishna consciousness means that we are heeding Krishna's call. Krishna is calling us, Manmana, always think of me. Become my devotee. It's active, it's dynamic. Krishna wants us. There's the famous poster, Uncle Sam wants you. Uncle Sam is pointing at you. Uncle Sam wants you to go out and get your body blown to pieces for the sake of the country, whatever that means. But Krishna wants us not for anything that Krishna is to gain. Krishna gains nothing from us. Krishna has nothing to gain from us. We're completely insignificant in relationship to Krishna. But simply Krishna, out of his love for us, doesn't want to see us suffer in this material world. Therefore he speaks Bhagavad-gita to convince us that there is nothing in this world, nothing of any value. We simply have to come to Krishna. Then we will have all happiness. Otherwise there's no happiness in this world. So Krishna, out of his kindness, he calls us, please come to me. Krishna is calling us. Krishna wants us to come close to him. He doesn't want us to remain separated from him. So all these activities, worship the deity and deity worship, everything should be first class, thinking this is Krishna. I have to serve Krishna. Chanting the names of Krishna again and again, calling out. Chanting the holy names of Krishna means to again and again call out, O Radha, O Krishna, please engage me in your service. Let me come closer to you, more and more and more. We hear about Krishna, this first process of the 9 principal processes of devotional service. Hearing about Krishna is the first. That also means hearing all the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. We can hear about the pastimes. We should also hear all the philosophy, all the understanding as Krishna gives to us. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there are many pastimes related. There's a lot of philosophy, a philosophical understanding, also understanding of how the creation takes place. All this is required to hear just so that we can come close to Krishna. We may think, well, let me just hear about the pastimes of Krishna, but we can't get entrance into those pastimes unless we're fully submissive to Krishna. So Krishna gives us this philosophy of Bhagavad-gita so that we'll become convinced to become submissive to him. Can I suggest that the offering is done afterwards? Then you can come and listen and not make various noises there. It'll just take a few minutes for it to offer it. Don't mind, but this is important, what we're discussing. We should have one point. Srila Prabhupada used that term, one-pointed attention. So all this is important. Some people think, well, we'll just hear about the pastimes of Krishna, or we'll only chant Hare Krishna. But Krishna himself speaks Bhagavad-gita, and Srila Prabhupada, who brought Krishna consciousness to the Western world, and all the acharyas, they speak the teachings of Bhagavad-gita. So we should understand this is very important to hear this, so that our consciousness can become Krishna consciousness. Otherwise there's a possibility that we'll hear the pastimes of Krishna, but we won't, not only the possibility, but the probability that we'll take the pastimes of Krishna without understanding properly who Krishna is, and we will superimpose our materialistic conceptions when we hear about Krishna. We will think that, well, Krishna is enjoying, let me enjoy also, or let me enjoy being with Krishna. But that attitude, as we heard from that verse spoken by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that attitude is not actual Krishna consciousness. The actual attitude is, let me submit myself to Krishna without any personal desire. That is a highly exalted attitude, which is why we have to hear about it. Because in material consciousness, we're always thinking how I can be benefited. And we think I will be benefited in terms of my own body and mind. How can I be benefited? But we should know that my benefit, my own real self-interest is served by submitting to Krishna. So everything is meant to bring us close to Krishna. Praying to Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna is praying. There are also many prayers we can read in Srimad Bhagavatam. Many great devotees have composed many prayers. There are many beautiful prayers. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself gave us the Shikshashtakam, teaching us how to pray to Krishna. There are so many prayers have been composed by devotees. Our 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan composed many prayers. In South India also the Mukunda Mala of Kulashekar Alva is very famous, and the Stotra Ratna of Yamuna Acharya. All the great devotees, they composed many prayers to Krishna. Srila Prabhupada also composed his prayers for preaching Krishna consciousness in the Western world, praying to Krishna to empower him. So this is the dynamic, reaching out to Krishna. Krishna, you're in the spiritual world, I'm in the material world. I'm coming close to you. I want to come close to you. Please, pull me out. Take me out. Ainanda tanuja kinkarang patitang mang vishame bhavam budhau kripaya tava pada pankaj. Stita dhuli sadrisham vichinta. Krishna, I'm in this material world. It's a horrible place. Visham, uses the word visham, means terrible, terrible place. Why is it terrible? There's birth, death, old age and disease. There's the perils, the difficulties, adhyatmik klesh, adhibhautik klesh, adhidaivik klesh, the difficulties caused by our own body and mind. Even our own mind gives us so much trouble. The difficulties which other living beings give to us, the difficulties of just being in this world, of the too much heat, too much cold, too much rain, not enough rain, so many difficulties. But the real difficulty for someone who begins to become developed in Krishna consciousness, they'll find that the real difficulty is achaitanyamidam vishvam, that everyone is they're not conscious of Krishna. The real difficulty is that we're separated from Krishna. So we're praying to Krishna, let me come close to you. Then what's stopping us? Krishna says, come to me, manmana, always think of me. What is stopping us coming to Krishna? It's our own reluctance to do so. Why are we reluctant? Because we're attached to the sense gratification of this material world. Or maybe we don't have full faith that if I surrender to Krishna, Krishna will look after me. So we have to hear again and again. Krishna promises, Pratijane, I promise this to you. You will come to me. I will look after you. We have to have that faith in Krishna. And faith is required. We don't, in our condition of material consciousness, we think that our benefit will be from money, good health, all these different things. But we have to have faith that parastasmatu bhavanyo vyakto vyaktat sanatanaha. That beyond this material world, there is the spiritual world, and we are meant to live there. That we have to have faith. Otherwise, we have faith in material existence. But what is here? There's nothing of any value here whatsoever. So hearing how miserable this material world is, how beautiful, how attractive, how loving, how kind, how merciful Krishna is, and more and more and more and more, giving ourselves to Krishna, allowing ourselves to become attracted to Krishna. So many diversions are there, but we simply have to open our heart. We've heard that phrase, open our heart to Krishna. Open our heart to Krishna means we have to get all the junk out of the way. The junk in the form of material desires, material attachments, and just open ourselves to Krishna. Again, it may take some time because we're in such different kind of consciousness. Back to front, upside down, inside out. Whatever we should be doing, we're doing the opposite. Because viparyaya smritihi, we have an opposite kind of consciousness. But that is to be reformed by the process. There is a process of cleaning. Cheto Darpana Marjanam, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, the first effect of chanting the holy names is cleaning the heart of all the dirty things. So this selflessness that we selflessness doesn't mean, as the Mayavadis say, that we just completely forget who we are. They say that to become free of ego means you lose your identity. But rather, selflessness means to identify, I am the servant of Krishna. That selflessness, selfless service. Sometimes that's promoted. Selfless service means to feed people and give clothes to those who don't have clothes and give medicine to those who don't have, to medicine to the sick. Well, the sentiment there that let us try to help others selflessly, that sentiment is definitely a better sentiment than let's exploit other and take their last penny and go further and put them in debt so that when they get any future pennies, we'll take that also. So the idea of selfless service, that is a laudable sentiment, but in this material world, it's a wasted sentiment because we can't actually help anyone on the material platform. The only way we can help them is to bring them to the spiritual platform of Krishna consciousness. If we want to help hungry people, well, they'll go hungry again, birth after birth. We cannot actually help them without giving them knowledge of Krishna, by which they can be eternally benefited in the best possible way. So selflessness, to become a completely surrendered devotee of Krishna. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teaching. That is the ultimate perfection of life. But it's very difficult for us to imagine that we can just completely submit ourselves to someone else. Therefore we have to hear about Krishna. That here really our benefit lies, not in anything else. We can never be independent of Krishna ultimately, and the attempt to do so is foolish. It won't help us in any way. So if we just accept this, that I am dependent upon Krishna, I have no choice but to be dependent on Krishna. My only choice is either to accept that I'm dependent on Krishna or to foolishly deny that I am dependent upon Krishna. But then I suffer. So even for my own benefit, selflessness, there may be an element of selfishness in thinking, what is my ultimate benefit? My ultimate benefit is simply to admit that I have no shelter but Krishna. And then one can go on from there, and advance more and more to the point where one doesn't even think of one's own benefit, but simply thinks that I have to serve Krishna. Whether Krishna embraces me, whether Krishna rejects me, of course Krishna never rejects, but that spirit should be there, that I'm simply meant to serve Krishna. And the more we give ourselves to Krishna, the more Krishna gives himself to us. Krishna is much bigger than us, so he can give himself to us more than we can give ourselves to him. As Srila Prabhupada said, if we make one step toward Krishna, Krishna takes 10 steps towards us. Of course, that's allegorical. But the point is that, we've all come here simply to come closer and closer and closer to Krishna. So that should go on. As Srila Prabhupada writes here, life should be so molded that we cannot but think of Krishna 24 hours a day. That should be our aim. It may seem difficult when we have families, jobs, so many things to do, but that should be our aim. How we can always be absorbed in Krishna 24 hours a day. This is the real spiritual platform. This is real yoga. Yoga means to link with the Supreme. So, what did I tell you new? I didn't tell you anything you didn't know. We often hear in Srila Prabhupada's lectures, he says that I have several times said, and then he'll give some example or state some point which he stated many times. But we have to hear again and again and again. Repetition is required just to hammer the point into our dull heads. We're only meant for Krishna. We have nothing else to do. Yes, we have. We do, in one sense. Yes, it's not that we're going to rush off and leave behind whatever we're doing. That's generally not recommended. It may be at some point in some people's lives that leave whatever you're doing and just only do Krishna conscious, nothing else. Especially those who are getting older, they should withdraw from everything and just become absorbed only in Krishna conscious activities. But for most people, considering that we are addicted to that which is not beneficial for us, therefore we're advised to sthane sthita shuddhigatang tanuvang manobi, remain in our present situation, and from that situation work on becoming Krishna conscious by hearing and chanting about Krishna, engaging more and more in his service. Just like an addict, there's a heroin addict. It's a very severe, dangerous addiction. There are so many different kinds of addiction. There's cigarette, tobacco addiction. Worse than that is alcohol addiction. Worse than that is heroin addiction. So in heroin addiction, you could just try locking someone up. Is that recommended? Lock them up and just leave them to suffer cold turkey. Does it work? Don't know. But the general process is that's not done, right? No. They have to try and gradually take them off. Otherwise, if by force you try to take heroin addicts by locking them up, then they'll suffer tremendously, and they won't. Because they don't have the desire to overcome it, they suffer tremendously, and all they can think about is getting another jab or however they take it. So we cannot by force become Krishna conscious, but we have to submit ourselves to the process voluntarily. And as long as we're in this world, we have to eat, sleep. Gradually we can try to overcome all these things. We may have social duties and so on. But whatever situation we're in, cultivate Krishna consciousness by regularly, daily, hearing about Krishna, chanting the names of Krishna, regularly coming together. Meetings like this, weekly meetings are here in which we can come together and hear and chant about Krishna. If we can do more than once a week, that's better. But this point, we should make the goal of our life to become completely absorbed in Krishna. So you didn't hear anything new. I didn't hear. Those of you who are coming regularly, you didn't hear anything new. But it's what we have to hear again and 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 again, so that we can continue to commit ourselves, and that our commitment will increase. Otherwise, the tendency is to slip back, go backwards. We should go forwards, always becoming closer and closer and closer and closer to Krishna, as Krishna desires. Hare Krishna. Any question about this, please?
We started very promptly, and I really wanted to thank Bhakti Vikasa Maharaj for taking time out to come.
Hare Krishna.
Actually 4 days in Nottingham. And also thank Sankirtan Prabhu, who's come over especially from the Czech Republic to serve Maharaj while he travels. Maharaj has blessed Nottingham Namahata before, and we hope he will continue to come and keep filling or banging on our dull heads so we can make some progress. So that's my question, Maharaj. If we have some subject like mathematics, then I study and I repetitively hear, and then I know I'm making progress because instead of 40% I get 60% in the exam. So how do I know I'm making progress?
How do I know I'm making progress in Krishna consciousness? The example is given. If I study mathematics, I can take the exam, and from the exam results I can know how I'm doing. And then when you actually go from level to level, start off with arithmetic, what comes next? Algebra, geometry, trigonometry, calculus, and on and on. So we can understand from the exam. How can we understand if we're advancing in Krishna consciousness? Well, the answer is given in Srimad Bhagavatam. That Bhakti parishanu bhavo viraktiranyatra. Bhakti means that we're actually experiencing Krishna, the Supreme Lord. Some experiences there. It's not just theoretical. And simultaneously we're becoming detached from everything else. Regarding that experience, that's the first line of the verse, and the last line of the verse is Tushti Pushti Kshuddha Payo Naghasam. The example is given that when we eat a meal, we're hungry. But as we eat, we become satisfied and we feel nourished with every bite. So in the same way, it's experiential. It is, we can see how we're becoming detached from material things, and we can experience how we're becoming satisfied and nourished in Krishna consciousness. Prapadyamanasya yatashnatasya. Yes, as one surrenders to Krishna, that is, one can experience this satisfaction and spiritual nourishment. So, bhakti requires surrender also. One who is surrendered to Krishna can experience this. So surrender, what does that mean? Then we have to see. Anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjanam. It's a whole science. Rakshishyatiti vishvaso guptritve varanang tata. Atmanikshepa, karpanye, shadavidha sharanagati. There's 6 symptoms of surrender. That we do only that which is favorable for advancing in Krishna consciousness. We give up anything which will impede our advancement. We accept that Krishna is our maintainer and Krishna is protecting us. We literally, Atmaniksha means throw ourselves at Krishna, very eager to attain Krishna consciousness. And we feel we're very humble. We feel ourselves to be very insignificant. So there are so many tests. We can see. Please don't lean on Bhagavad-gita. You can worship, but don't use it as something to lean on. Books are mass-produced. Previously they were written by hand, and people thought of it as something very valuable, because it is. To have a book If it's individually written by hand, you can imagine people put great importance. Now they're mass-produced. Sometimes I saw in our Bhaktivedanta Book Trust office in Calcutta that the hired workers, they would use the hard book covers to keep the door open with the picture of Krishna. I used to yell at them. And then I'd go and then they'd put it back again. So it's worshipable. So we have to, even though it's a mass-produced object and in that sense non-different from washing up liquid or any other day-to-day object, we have to remember Bhagavad-gita is worshipable. So, you were going to ask a question? No. All right then. Yeah, you have a question.
Could you speak some more on what you said that Krishna does not need us, he doesn't need anything from us, yet how to... most of us here are working and serving because we get something or because they're needed, like a mother is needed for her children, so she feels that she needs to do the work. Or if we are working and get our salaries and our wages, then we are working because we want a wage, because we want to look after our families or the children's school, etc. So Krishna doesn't need anything from us, and yet we want to engage in his service. So how is this possible for us to understand from such an ordinary platform of working?
How is it possible to understand that? I was saying repeatedly. Hear regularly, then everything will be understood. How can we understand Krishna? We cannot understand Krishna. We cannot even understand one atom. Our capacity to understand fully anything is not possible for us. But as far as Krishna explains himself in Bhagavad-gita, we should try to understand it. Then Krishna will help us to understand. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. Krishna gives us the intelligence by which we can come to him. So our process of understanding is we hear as Krishna explains, and we submit ourselves to Krishna, and then Krishna helps us to understand. It's not an academic process. Academic in some sense, yes, we should try to understand. It is philosophy. But ultimately we depend on Krishna's mercy. Yeah, you're going to ask something?
I wanted to ask, like, during the day, if you were singing, if you give them, like, you know, singing a mantra, is that an offence?
Is it an offence in our head to sing the Mahamantra?
I mean, because you're not attentive. It's just something I heard last week, and that's something on my mind.
If we're not attentive,
yeah, because you might be, I don't know,
doing something else. Sometimes, it's quite often, I think we all have this experience, I certainly do, that some sound, some little bit of music or something goes on and on in our head repeatedly. You know that? You hear some song and in your mind it repeats on and on and on. Is that a common phenomenon?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that we were driving from Sheffield to Nottingham and I was singing all the way. Mataji's describing them.
Oh, something like that. You're chanting when you're driving or when you're washing up. Well, no, actually that's the perfection. You may say we're inattentive, but when we can't get Krishna out of our mind, not that we want to get Krishna out of our mind, or we could say that automatically in all our activities that we think of Krishna. Krishna tells Arjuna, Mamana smara yudhyacha, think of me and fight. Arjuna thought, well, let me just meditate, but Krishna said, think of me and fight. Sarva kamani api sada, kurvano madhya pashraya. Krishna says to Arjuna, in all your activities, just take shelter of me. So, Krishna doesn't say to stop activities, but he says to think of him. So, there may be levels of intensity of thinking of Krishna, but the perfection is to think of Krishna. And we have to act also means that generally we have to think about what we're doing when we're acting. It is not recommendable to have fits of religious ecstasy when one is driving, for instance, and to just become forgetful of everything you're doing. If someone is in such a state of continuous religious ecstasy, they shouldn't drive a car. But one can drive the car and think, I have to drive this to come to the meeting of devotees, and I have to drive carefully because I'm driving devotees. So that's also Krishna consciousness. When Arjuna was shooting arrows, that was Krishna consciousness. He wanted to be Krishna conscious in another way. Krishna told him, no, you fight. You be Krishna conscious this way, the way I tell you. So to think of Krishna when we're washing the dishes, that is very good. Not bad. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, by whose grace we're all here today. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. If Srila Prabhupada hadn't come, we wouldn't be coming to such meetings. Hare Krishna. So what's the point? What did we all learn? Let's have a little bit of academics here. Did we learn anything? No, I already said there's nothing new, but what point? What's the point here? Any little revision of the class? We have to hear more, that's one point. Anything else? Right, we have to believe, we have to have faith, yeah. And think of Krishna, yes, that's what the verse is about. Manmana, Krishna says, think of me. We have to think of Krishna. Anything else? To try and mold our lives so that we think of Krishna all the time. Become full-time once we're old. That's actually an important instruction, because otherwise, how are we going to think of Krishna at the time of death? When we have no other duties, material duties, then we should fully absorb in Krishna consciousness. Any other points? Midlife crisis. We hear a lot about that. It's not just a midlife crisis, it's early life crisis, midlife crisis. The whole life in this material world, it's a crisis. Sometimes we're more conscious of it and we call it a midlife crisis. But actually, the midlife crisis, there are two features of it. One is that half our life is gone and we're not Krishna conscious, and the other part is that the rest of our life we're also not planning to be Krishna conscious. That's the midlife crisis. Not being Krishna conscious is crisis. I have a choice whether to be dull-headed or not dull-headed. Utishta jagrata prapya varang nibhodata kshurasya dhara nishita durataya durgang patas tat kavayo vadanti. This is from the Vedas, from the Upanishads. Get up, wake up, attain the valuable boon which is available only in human life. At the same time, we should be aware, as is warned by the great learned persons, that spiritual life is like as sharp as a razor, or human life. We can use it or misuse it. It's duratya. It is difficult, no doubt. But Krishna will help us. That one point, selflessness. Selflessness. That's an essential point to understand, because There are many religious people in the world, but the whole concept of selflessness, that we have nothing but to give ourselves to Krishna. Not many people can pray like that. We can recite na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam va jagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishwari bhavatad bhaktirahaitu kitvai. Oh Krishna, I don't want anything from you. I'm coming praying to you. Krishna said, someone else coming praying. What do you want? You want money? No. Oh, you want money? What do you want? You want to be powerful, rich, famous? No. And what do you want? Oh, you're one of those. You want liberation? No. Oh, really? Then what do you want? Krishna, I only want to serve you. Whatever you do to me. Who can pray like that? That should be our aim, to pray like that, to become so selfless. We have nothing, not wanting to take anything from Krishna. We really have to to remold our consciousness. If we can do that, that is the perfection of life. Not many people can even begin to understand this. This is real prayer. If we can learn to pray like this, that is the perfection. So many books of prayers are there. In Christianity, they emphasize a lot on prayer, isn't it? Personal prayer. And in Islam, the namaz, 5 times daily. I think in the Shias it's 3 times daily. Whatever. They have to pray. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us how to pray completely selflessly. Let us try to imbibe that. Hare Krishna. Yeah, I already finished it.